Hello everyone, Nigel Saunders here for KW Bonsai. You may have noticed I have my winter coat back on. The weather's gone from t-shirt like weather back to just above freezing. There was a chance of snow last night, but we just got rain instead. But it's pretty cool out. So I'm back in the greenhouse. It's, what is it in here? Well, it's 42 degrees Fahrenheit and about 8 Celsius in here. So pretty cool, but not too bad. So today we're looking at our red maples. Red maples are one of those trees that's probably the most common maple in North America. These are the trees that you find growing everywhere. They have nice shaped leaves at first, and then they get quite large later on in the year. But if you look on the internet, type in red maple bonsai, you'll see some pretty nice examples of some. The leaves can reduce quite nicely, and you can get beautiful trunks on them and branching and everything. So, not an impossible tree to bonsai, and they're free. I find them everywhere. There's a lot of red maples around. They drop their maple keys, those little spinning helicopters everywhere. Wherever they land, you can get trees sprouting, and you can develop them. So this tree was a little seedling from the garden, and I think it's in maybe its 5th year of training as a bonsai. So we're going to be root pruning and repotting that and doing some trimming to the top. This big one here, it was growing in the front garden, and it was growing in, it was a part of an old pond that I had in the front garden. So there's a swimming pool buried in the front garden, and it got filled in with leaves and debris, and this tree started growing in the bottom of the swimming pool, which was just shallow. It was only about 6 inches deep, and I was keeping my eye on it because I thought, well, if it's growing in this plastic swimming pool, it'll probably have a nice shallow root system that'll spread out nicely. And I was keeping my eye on it, and I was going to dig it up when it kind of got a nice size to start making into a bonsai. And then I forgot about it. And a couple of years later, I noticed this tree getting fairly big in the front garden. And I thought, oh dear. So I took a look at it, and I thought, well, it's kind of getting a little too big to be a bonsai tree, but we'll try it anyway. So I dug it up. It did have a flat root system, but it was really coarse and not very good. So I did some really severe root pruning to it, and I didn't really expect the tree to survive. And it stayed looking like a stump till about halfway through summer, and then it started sprouting. So I really thought it was going to die. I really gave it a severe root pruning. So we're going to try and make it into some kind of a bonsai, probably a large one. So we're going to be repotting it today, see what's happening with the roots, and get it into some better soil and a bigger pot. We're going to start with the small one, and we're going to prune it up first and then repot it. So I'm just taking a look at the tree. We've had a trunk chop here that's being replaced with a new leader. And we've got, a fairly strong leader coming up here and another one here, which is good. So we have to think about the design of this tree. How big do I want it in the end? What do I want it to look like? Because when you start a tree from a young seedling like this, you have all these choices. You can make your trunk very tall before it starts to divide. You can start your trunk dividing down here if you want to. You can pretty well do anything you want with a young tree, which is kind of nice if you have a vision in mind, which may be the hard part. So, examining this tree, we're getting good taper to it because we've done some root pruning. I usually start training trees in their 2nd year. So I'll plant a seedling. The first year I'll let it grow untouched. The second year I'll let it grow untouched. And then starting in the third year, we'll start the root pruning and slowly turning into a bonsai tree and growing our bonsai roots. So yeah, so this tree is about 5 years old. So we can definitely work on the roots. And I have to decide how big I want it. Well, that's a good question. I think starting multi-trunks at this height would kind of mean, you know, the overall height of the tree would probably be, you know, this high, sort of a small to medium-sized tree. So I think I want my division where it goes from one trunk to multi-trunks higher up in the tree, because I think in the end this will be a larger tree. I don't really want to keep it small. It is a naturally sort of medium to large leaf tree, so I don't want it to try and keep it small and have to do a lot of leaf pruning and, you know, a lot of work to get the leaves small. Because you can do it, but it's sort of a temporary state. You know, you can leaf prune, you can get it looking good for one point in its life or for a bonsai show, but naturally they're going to grow back larger, and you know, you'll always be fighting the leaf size. So if we make it a larger tree, those leaves will look smaller because the tree will be larger. So I don't see keeping it as a small tree. However, we will train it with character. So with that in mind, I'm going to prune off all these lower branches because we don't want to develop, you know, a knob of branches. You've seen my Norway maple, all the knobs I had on the branches, kind of ugly. So we don't want that. We want to keep our trunk fairly clean. So we're going to prune off all these little branches. This one's a dead one here. We'll get rid of that. Now, we're going from our one trunk to two, which I think is too low in the tree. So I'd rather just keep it as a single trunk at the moment. So I want to pick one of these trunks. This one kind of naturally flows a little better, so I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to get rid of this one. It sort of juts off to the side. So off it goes. There. So now we're down to the single trunk line. And this height isn't too bad for starting our subdividing up here. So the dead stub I just broke off. Another one here. So yeah, we want to start our subdividing here. Is this one too high? Maybe not. We'll keep this one. We will reduce it down. There's a set of buds here. So I'm going to prune it back to here, keeping our upright leaders strong. I'm just going to prune it off to here. A set of nice buds there, and prune the tip off here. Because there's a set of nice buds here. There's some smaller ones here. There's even some down here, but we'll see what that does. Now, I've got a little bud here, which is, you know, opposite. We would get 3 branches, so we're going to have to remove that. Or remove this trunk. I'm thinking of keeping the small bud and removing this one, because the tree is kind of slanting over that way. I don't know. Either way would work. Maybe I'll keep this one. I'll get rid of this one. Either way would work. Could develop either one. And then here we want to divide our one trunk into 2, so I'm going to get rid of all these small buds in this area. And just have our 2 trunks. And that's all our pruning we'll do on this tree. It's actually getting a little warm in the greenhouse. I can take my winter coat off. Let's get the tree out of the pot. When we're repotting and root pruning a tree, take as much care and attention to a small seedling you're developing as you do to a, full mature tree. You can see this root flare at the bottom here. It's really nice, and you'll only get that with proper root pruning. Okay, so let's rake out our surface roots again in our radial pattern, starting from the center of the tree and raking outwards, so we're not ripping through radial roots. Looks like it's a good dense root ball. This tree was repotted 2 years ago, so I missed it last year, and that happens every year. I have ambitions of repotting every tree, and I run out of time. You can see this is getting close to the buds coming out, so, had the weather have stayed warmer, I would have run out of time very quickly. The leaves would start opening on all my trees soon. So luckily, the weather has cooled off, and I might get a few more days of potting before all these leaves come out on my deciduous trees, which is kind of good. Seedlings, there's kind of a magic moment with seedlings. When you grow a tree from a seed, like this one was a small seedling, they look like seedlings for 1, 2, 3 years, and then suddenly one year you're looking at it and it starts to look like a little tree. And every year from then on it starts to look like a better little tree. And better, and it's kind of amazing watching, the trees grow up from looking like a stick to starting to look like a small tree. And to me, that's a good feeling when you've kind of developed something from nothing. So I've just about got all my surface roots raked out. So we're going to flip the tree over and start on the bottom. Wow, a good solid mat of roots. I'll take my drainage screens out. People ask me why I don't wire my drainage screens in the pot. Well, the reason is that normally the roots grow all around the drainage screens, and if they're wired in the pot, it makes it really hard to lift the tree out of the pot. The roots grip the drainage screens, which are wired in the pot. Now you can unwire them. If you have your wires out the bottom, you can wire them and lift them out with the tree, but if you're going to do that, what's the point of wiring them in? I just leave them loose in there, put the soil on top, and they come out when I pull the tree out. So what's the point of wiring them in? I don't know. So we've got a lot of roots on the bottom here. The root ball is quite thick. So you know what we're going to do about that. We're going to thin it down to one plane, get rid of all the roots growing down, and just keep our radial roots. So I've almost got all these roots untangled, and it'll be time to wash them. I just wash them in a tub of water. I don't use the hose or anything. I don't want to blast the roots clean. I just want to get the old soil off. I've got the roots washed out. So now we're going to do a better combing. Trying to get out as many tangles as possible. Trying not to scrape our glass surface and make horrible sounds. In fact, I'll get my turntable and put it on there. And that way we don't have to make those horrible screeching sounds from the glass. I think we're going to start some pruning. You can see I've got, one pretty long, large root here. We've got a few roots that are duplicated here. We want to get our roots to one plane. So I think we're going to start on the bottom for this tree and get our roots kind of reduced down. See where the base of the tree is. I'm going to get rid of some of these roots that are crossing underneath. And this may help us find our root plane, or where it's supposed to be. We'll rake it out a bit. Lots of soil in here still. Okay, so there's a root growing straight down here we want to get rid of. That's gone. And we can kind of start to see the base of our tree way up here. There it is. There's another root we can get rid of way in here that's sticking down. There we go. Now you notice the base of our tree, because we started this from a young seedling, you know, it's all healed over underneath. There's no cut marks, any big ones underneath there. So we're not going to get our hollow trunk, it's not going to rot out from underneath like some of the bigger trees when we, you know, have to prune off a great big taproot or anything. We're not going to get that big scar underneath the tree, which is kind of good. It'll keep our tree really healthy. Just pruning away some of these roots that are going down here. The ones that are, you know, duplicated roots. We have roots higher up. Alright, let's flip it over again. Do a bit more combing. So these matted sections where I'm kind of ripping the comb through it, you want to get rid of all those matted sections. You want to keep your roots all individual roots. If I leave those matted sections to grow, they'll kind of fuse together and create a plate under the tree. I don't like that in trees. It can look neat and unique, but to me, I don't like it. I like keeping my surface roots as individual roots. And that way, if they're individual roots, you get these flutes in the trunk, where the root kind of extends up the trunk and gives you a ridge. If it's one plate, the trunk just doesn't have character. It just develops thicker, and it's always smooth and round. If you have individual roots, you get that ridging on the trunks. Fluting, it's called. So that's why I like to keep my surface roots as individual roots. Okay, here we go on the pruning of our surface roots. So we've got a fairly large root up here, and it's duplicated with another one down below. So we want to pick our root plane, which is going to be, you know, fairly low. We've got some good lower roots here. So we want to get rid of that upper one. So let's do that. There, we made a nice little cut there. And we can remove that root, which was, you know, a fairly major root. But, you know, maples, they're good at generating roots. Then we've got our next root crosses one that's even lower. So which one do we want? Can we uncross them successfully without breaking the roots off? Let's try. If it breaks off, it breaks off. We'll prune it away. So I'm trying to, you know, arrange these roots so they're more radial. that's looking better. It's not perfect, that's for sure, and I'll do the same here. I'll try and arrange all these major roots, untangle them, and get them in a radial pattern. It'll help us see what we're doing. There. So let's go back. Where were we? Right here. Here. So these are better now. Our root plane isn't really firm as to the height of it. You know, we've got some great roots developing this side down here. And then on this side of the tree we've got nothing down lower, but we've got some roots developing up higher. So it probably means we'll have to have the tree on a bit of a slant like that. That way our root base will be more equalized out. It's just a dead root I'm going to prune away here. So that's a possibility for fixing that. It is possible more roots will grow down lower on this side in future. I mean, the tree's quite young. We can still develop it. So this root here, I'm not really liking it. I've got a lot of roots, nicer looking ones down lower. So I'm going to get rid of that one on top there. Like so. That's looking better. This root, it's a radial direction would be more here, and it's kind of off on an angle, so I'm going to redirect it. There's a root that's in a better position over here, so we'll cut off this portion of the root. Once I get my larger pruners, that root's pretty tough. There. So that'll redirect that root in a better angle. These ones are fine. We've kind of got a root crossing here, but it's not too bad. We can rearrange it over to here. It's kind of on top. We have a really thick root here, so we've got to cut that back. We want to equalize the growth of the roots. So the thicker ones we cut back harder, the thinner ones less. So the thick one we're going to cut back to here. Horizontal cut to the bottom of the pot, or the ground, like that. Take that away. We have another quite vigorous root over this side that we want to shorten and redirect. So we're going to cut it off here. This root, we have it kind of going off at an angle. This root's in a better plane. It's more radial to the center of the trunk. So we're going to prune off part of this root. Now, this root is holding this root over, but I'm not sure I like that. It kind of puts a weird bend in it. But I'm going to prune this root off for starters. And again, a horizontal cut here. Short like that. And we're going to cut off this portion of this root, encouraging it to grow in a more radial pattern. And I'm not liking the end on this one. I think we're going to cut it off even shorter here. Trying to keep that little root there. That's a little better. A little better on that root. We'll see. Something may develop in there in the future. We're going to prune back some of these longer roots. They're too big for our pot. Prune back some of these. Now we're going to go around to this side. Nice roots here. Then these are kind of high and these are low, but there's not a lot we can do about that. We just don't have anything lower under these roots, so we'll just let them develop and see what happens. I got a root growing up here. I don't want this one. Get rid of that. We need to do a little raking here to see what's going on here. It looks okay. So we need to trim back these roots. They're quite long and a lot of feeder roots, so we can safely prune those back quite a bit shorter. So you can see we're getting our root ball down now, and it's looking better. Prune this one back a bit. This one. This one. Just trying to get some subdividing of these roots closer to the trunk, especially the more vigorous roots. We're going to go underneath again. I'm going to prune off some of these roots that are pointing downwards, getting it flat on the bottom. Looks much better. We'll just give it a combing. There we go. Now we're back up top. Give it another combing. And I think that's it for this year. We've kind of done as much as we can to the root system to improve it in 1 year as we can. We've taken it down to a nice level. It'll fit in the pot quite nicely. Maybe, you know, if we pick a front, maybe we'll have to prune off a few more of these end roots to get it to fit really well, but it's not too bad. So I'll clean the pot up, rewash the tree, and we'll plant the tree. I'm going to try and pick a front for the tree. Well, I kind of like this as the front. It's got the, I think it's got the best root base. It could change later on as this tree develops, but yeah. We'll put that as the front for now. We will have to prune off a few more of these roots just to get it to fit in the pot a little better. Not a whole lot. There we go. Oh, it fits really nicely in there now. Okay, let's get planting now. So I'm going to place my drainage screens in there. And we'll start. Put a layer of soil on the bottom. Try not to breathe in the dust. And then we'll place the tree. Again, I'm going to do it from my side, so you'll be seeing the back, but I don't know if this pot has a better front. This is the better side of the pot, so I'm going to put the tree here. Why is it the better side? Well, on this side the glaze comes down on the feet a little bit. So this side has a little nicer glaze on it. So I'm picking that as the front. Placing my tree on. We want all our newly pruned roots in the pot, so we don't want the tree sitting too high. That's looking pretty good there. So before we fill it in, we're just going to do a final raking of our surface roots, making sure they're as good as we can get them. That looks good. And we'll start filling in the soil. So you're seeing the front now. That's kind of where I picked. I guess the tree's a little too close to on center. I'm going to move it over a bit. And we'll move it over to the side because the tree kind of leans this way, so it kind of balances the composition a bit. Yeah. Somewhere about there is good. And we'll fill her in. Another scoop of soil. And we'll work that soil in. The front isn't too critical at this point. I mean, this tree is just really young and in training. But, you know, you have to look at it all year round. So you might as well make it look, you know, as nice as you can. You know, it's in a nice pot. I could just throw this in a training pot, a plastic pot, or a wooden box or something, but you might as well make the tree look as nice as it can if you've got an extra pot lying around. Tree's sitting in there nicely, getting all those air pockets out, and the big chunks of soil are surrounding the roots. Get rid of some of these big chunks here, and we'll just put a little more on. And again, at this point, we're not too concerned about exposing our surface roots. We're just showing a little of the trunk flare on the tree, which is kind of nice to see. But our surface roots are hidden well beneath the soil. Someday they'll be exposed and they'll look really good. All that remains now is we water the tree thoroughly, put it outside back in the full sun, and watch it grow this season. That's it for part one of this video, where we're repotting our small red maple. And I guess the point of part one is that I just want to illustrate the point that you should take as much care for a small seedling, root pruning it and that, as you would for a large mature tree. All those surface roots that we're organizing now are going to become thick surface roots someday, and we hope someday someone will say, wow, how did you get surface roots like that? They're fantastic. That's our goal, is to, you know, make them really, really nice. So I'll put this one away now. We're going to get out the big one now, the big red maple, and see what's going on with those roots.